All right. Hey, everybody. It's Jason Blaha here, just sitting here drinking my morning coffee, looking sexy as hell as usual. But I would wake up with my people. Going to be a fairly eventful morning. Got to get GPP done. I'm going to get that done fairly early. I need to get out, get the GPP done. And then I have a uh, consultation call happening. And then I have some other stuff I got to get sorted. So could be it's going to be a pretty busy day for me outside of these live streams. But yeah, off to it's been a great week. So I've been already sold 2 consultations this week. Good morning, Lars. The returning client, I did a call last night. It was a client who I thought was not going to come back. He's a very very hard client to work with in a lot of ways. But he ended up. We did a call. He paid, and he's ready to get started again today. So yeah, good stuff. Like it's been a really good week for business overall. Just all flowing in. I mean, because I'm already what's the sixth, and it's pretty much made an extra 500 this week. That was not in my budget or schedule to make. Completely outside of my schedule. So I'll take it. I'll take it. Um, and what is Thursday? Yeah, I mean, not bad because that's stuff that was not expected money, right? Consultations, returning client. So yeah, we're in a good flow. One of my guys who took 2 months off came back this weekend also, but I knew he was coming back. Um, I already knew, so that was anticipated. But yeah, one of those mornings. So I'm going to get up early, get a really good coffee chat. But yeah, good morning to you, Lars. We'll get a good coffee chat going and get my day up and flowing. But I got to write him a new sheet. And when I say as a difficult client, meaning the guy who uses plenty of gear, cares primarily about aesthetics, as a former like college athlete. There's a lot that's going on with him as a client. So he is a fair amount of work. But I like a challenge. I like a challenge. But the thing is someone who those conversations, like most of my clients are actually natty, but you get ones where you have to have those serious talks about harm mitigation. He does get blood work and stuff. He's got decent income, obviously. But it's that case of the harm mitigation side of what he can and can't get away with. Um, and him wanting to push those limits but not compromise health. That's a lot. Um, hey Jason, hope you're well, dude. Loving the recent training and client blogs. Hey man, thank you, dude. I'm well, Simon. I'm glad that you're good, man. I'm glad that you're good. Speaking of Simon, I hope my one client Simon comes back this month. I have a client named Simon. He just moved to Japan. I lost him for 5 months while he's been through a whole international move and rearranging his stuff. But he's talking about coming back this month. He does packages, so it's one of those clients where when he comes back, he does 6 months at a time. So hoping that flows. Speaking of clients and Simons, Coach very business minded this morning. I need to get my other Facebook posts going. If you guys will just bear with me, let me get those up and flowing. What I need to do. There we go. All right. I got to put these on timers though. Give me just a minute. And we'll get back over to you, lovely people. The downside with the coffee chats, I will take a little periodic breaks from watching the screen to sort other stuff, getting coffee, restroom, making other posts. I don't see how I'm going to get that bonus on the profile this month, though. So what they do, they give us little challenges for extra cash bonuses. I've been getting about half of them lately. And it's not even huge amounts of money. It's like, oh, if you reach this little milestone on this one, we'll give you an extra $44. That's literally what it is. But I don't think I'm going to hit it. It's like, I'm not going to get that one. I got the $20 one last time. I just don't see how I'm going to reach that metric. I know I'm being that silly over $44, and I literally get $100 for consults, and I've already done 2 this week. But still, man, it's if I'm funny like that with my Facebook stuff, that's ridiculous. I'm always trying to grab every little penny, because why wouldn't I? And the ironic part is, it's the most taxed income I have, because it's all 1099 this. I get hammered on that. All right. So I got to put these all in the rotation. So every 5 minutes, I got to come hit the button now. Okay, we're back. All right, Simon, let me get over to you. You got a bunch of stuff. Hey, you got me a bunch of content. So hit the like button for me too. I was wondering if you had a bit of advice for me, if you wouldn't mind. Sure. So essentially, I was really into jiu-jitsu, but I got terribly ill and fell out of doing the lifting side as well as BJJ. I've come back to jiu-jitsu, but would you recommend start lifting again? Yeah, of course. It'd be wise to go into conjugate like I was on before, or do a more basic program, just focus on big lifts and sets for 4 to 6 with a small amount of accessories. My strength is so down now. My body fat is 25%, so I'm going to be cutting off some body fat and start lifting again. If your strength is down that much, I wouldn't go straight back into conjugate, but I would do it quick. So if you really feel like conjugate worked extremely well for your BJJ, and it's not an unreasonable assumption, I found as a coach it works pretty good there too. I would probably do 2 or 3 weeks of base building, right? I would come in 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks of like you're saying, rep work on the big lifts. I think 4 to 8 is reasonable. 4 to 8 is perfectly reasonable on your big lifts. Just rebuild a little bit of a base, regain a little bit of muscle off some old muscle memory, re-get your strength levels up a little bit, right? Totally reasonable. And then go back into conjugate, depending upon how much strength you lost, though, like 2 to 4 weeks. But once you get that baseline back, you can go back into conjugate with the LB and DE work. And I think it'll be perfectly reasonable, dude. Perfectly reasonable. What do you think? But I think your overall plan's good. Yeah, it makes sense. You're the best dude. Honestly, the content you put out is so valuable. Your level's above everyone on the platform in terms of coaching and proper strength and conditioning. Hey, Simon, I appreciate that, man. Most of my clients feel that way. But yeah, always appreciate those comments, man. And I'm glad that I'm able to help you guys. At the end of the day, yes, this is a business, and yes, I care about my money, but I also like helping people. But that's been the beauty of all of it for me, is that I turned something I'm really passionate about into a business. So I can't complain on that part. Man, I got something I'm debating making a post on too. One that threw me off. How are the clients getting on? Been loving the blog, especially Ted's. I've always liked conjugates. He's still doing combat sports. No, he still does them recreationally. He does BJJ actually, and he does boxing, but he's not doing huge amounts of them. He's getting 1 or 2 sessions in a week right now with that, because we're prepping for other stuff. We've got both strongman and powerlifting meets on the schedule coming up. So you can only do so much at one time. But I mean, he's been doing martial arts for a decade, right? So he's been doing them a long time. So it's not like he hasn't established, a baseline skill. But he's a very versatile athlete. To be fair, even if he only trains a little bit of the massive strength increases are going to be good for his. Yeah, absolutely. Plus the speed stuff. I think people have to remember he does plyometrics, he does sled work, all that other stuff. But he's done other sports. He's done track and field. He's run 5Ks even here as an adult. Because he used to also work as a lifeguard. So he used to do 5Ks out on the beach, and so on. Or he really got into his career. He used to work as a lifeguard too. So, good stuff. All right, let me get this next post. I'm going to go get some coffee. So where the hell is it normally? It's a little early, so it's just they're not quite used to me being in this early. Let me put up a post. That way people will also see it. That might be why. Let's do that. People might not be getting alerts. It's a little early compared to normal. I'm up sooner and I want to get my GPP done sooner. So I'm sure that's what it is. We'll give them a little time. So I put up a community tab that'll get a few people in. The likes will help too. Yeah, they'll be in. I don't get in a big rush. It's not a big deal. Coffee chats do whatever they're going to do. Although I need to put the bed pictures up. For some reason, those do really well when I put the picture from the photo sheet on those pictures up. Just curiosity, morbid curiosity by people. All right. But they'll get in here, Simon. Not a big deal. At least Lars came through, dropped a like. Oh man. That is still a little slow. Oh man. I picked up a lot of channels or the channel members this month. How many of those did we pick up? Within the last 16 days. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 new channel members. A couple of them been the warlords, not just the regular warriors. Yeah, all good. What's your plans of training and body composition? I'm just going to keep recomping. I just want to get stronger and recomp for now at this weight. I do want to bring up stuff like my delts and biceps a little though. I think I like the New Year. I don't care for him at all. That's absolutely going to be an economic failure. I looked his stuff over. No, it's not going to work out at all. Um, he's trying to implement stuff for the government to pay for huge amounts of benefits with no way to pay for it. His plan to pay for it is going to backfire. So what I mean is, if you look at how he plans to pay for all this stuff, the minimum wage increase, um, the free buses, the free daycare, the housing stuff they're building, the city-owned grocery stores. Okay, do you look at how he plans on paying for it? Right? Did anyone see a flaw in the payment system? He's going to bankrupt the city. So the flaw, he's simply going to raise taxes. You ready? He's going to raise taxes on everybody who makes $1 million or more a year in the city to pay for all of it. They're just going to move. Right? All those people who are making that sort of money or have that sort of money who live there, when he goes to raise the taxes, a bunch of them are just going to move. They're just going to leave the city. They're not forced to stay there, you know. So if all of a sudden the city starts trying to hit them for another 10% of their income, they're going to be like, you know what? Property is cheaper in other places. I can still make my money, and I could just go move to a cheaper place, cost me even less money, and finally just get out of here. All right. So, it's just not, it's going to be an economic disaster. Like, this is not understanding economics. And then what happens to the middle class? He raises the minimum wage to 30. The cost of everything goes up, and everyone kind of in the middle area gets completely screwed. You know, his policies are going to be devastating to the middle class. And people can argue all they want, but at the end of the day, capitalism has been the most successful system we've had overall. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be regulated. It should be. I am not a laissez-faire type person to where, just full free open market. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying there shouldn't be restrictions. To keep corporations from being predatory to some extent. But at the end of the day, capitalism breeds innovation. It breeds work ethic. So when people say stuff like universal basic income, well, who's paying for that? I'm already angry enough about my taxes that I'd be almost for revolution level over it. Like, where are you going to get who else are you taxing to get this? We're already in debt. Like, we're already 40 trillion in debt. Where are you getting this money? Most of us are sick of paying taxes as it is, right? Like, for me, the IRS is my biggest nightmare. My life would be objectively better if we just abolished it. Like, my life, day to day, every week life would be objectively better. And I'm not the only person who feels that way. So how are you going to pay for this stuff? You going to tax us more? Keep in mind those conversations we had in the U.S. about the current level of firepower. The people who feel that way, our level of firepower has increased 20-fold in the last 25 years. Like, you push that segment too far, we simply get pissed and get rid of the government. and they're not understanding that. They have no concept. They have no concept. No, a mayor has a lot of power, Lars, but he's got a city council that he has to work through. But yeah, they have a lot of power in terms of cities. Music. The only reason people in the U.S. are paying considered so little taxes is because countries have gotten more socialized. And I can tell you the standard of living is different. Like I can tell you, having been abroad, the middle class in these more socialized countries, their standard of living isn't what you think it is. They don't live like we do. So what the people I've met, like say, take the UK for example, the middle class lives like the lower working class. Like they're almost at poverty level lifestyle for the US. Like it's borderline hood. The middle class in the UK is like borderline ghetto hood level lifestyle in terms of quality of life. Right. Like so your neighbors down there who got the baby mamas and food stamps, that's like their level of lifestyle is the middle class in the UK, which is more socialized with higher taxes. You know, and the money doesn't go as far. Like everything is more expensive. Taxes are higher and everything costs more. Right. Like remember when I did the little tour with my house just the other day when the power was out? And there were people from over there like, dude, you almost live in a palace. You guys have any idea what a house like this costs? So everyone sees that, and you guys didn't even see the master bedroom and the walk-in closets. My bathroom is as big as my kitchen. 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, 2 car garage. What do you think a house like that costs here? It's like $250,000 house, guys. And I'm serious. With paying 20% of the taxes you would pay in the UK or a more socialized country, 20 to 30%. Right? So let me put that into euros. So what is that in euros? So that's 217,000 euros. That's what houses cost here, guys. Music, they live in slums. The middle class in the UK live in slums. Everything is dirty. Everything is run down. Everything is like 50, 100 years old. They live in decrepit buildings. The cost of food is insane. You pay twice as much for fruits and vegetables, and they're just like wilted imported stuff with no flavor, bland. The meat is insanely bland, and all the food costs twice as much. Gasoline costs twice as much for your car. Everything is taxed into the ground. Right? Like everything is dirty and old. So a lot of the middle class neighborhoods there are what we would think of here as kind of trashy welfare areas, right? So that's how the middle class lives in the UK, which what we would call there's a lot of Section 8 houses, a lot of people on food stamps. Man, the streets are old and run down. There's bottles and stuff, broken bottles on the street. You know, you would think of as kind of the ghetto, not Fifth Ward ghetto. You know, there's nobody firing AKs off in gang war, but definitely a place where there's crack being sold on the street corner. You know, right? That's how the middle class lives there, dude. They're in 50 and 100-year-old buildings and dirty streets, everything run down and broken bottles on the street. So more of you would think of as kind of the a little bit hood or projects. Right. So the neighborhoods like in Texas here where you know there's probably, you know, a couple hundred illegal immigrants living in the neighborhood. There's a dude who sells crack in the neighborhood, you know. No, it's because they're taxed through the roof. Everything's insanely expensive. Like they can't afford, they don't make enough money after their taxes to have anything, and everything costs too much. Right. Whereas when you go to the US, in most of the South, like the cost of living is way lower. I mean, the houses are 10 to 20% of what people over there would be paying, you know. Like this is not considered, you know, an upper middle class house. This is total middle class, working class house where I live. Well, it's propaganda from the left. And you know, the same thing they talk about their socialized medicine. You ever done socialized medicine? People want to know why my teeth are jacked up. The UK did that to me. And I still haven't dished out the money to fix all of it. Eventually I will. Um, that's socialized medicine right there, guys. Um, no, so it's nothing like what you're used to in the US. So anyone who's ever had insurance because they're company, so people forget that. Um, with this being capitalist here, what people don't understand over there, okay, sure, we don't have socialized medicine, we have corporate medicine. This is an important selling point for jobs. That's what they're not getting because we don't have socialized medicine. When companies are like their headhunters are trying to hire people, what do you think part of their sales pitch is? Hey man, look how good a medical insurance our company pays for you if you're a full-time employee. Look at your benefits package. Right? In the US, the companies use this. These are leverage. Hey, look what benefits our company. Look at the retirement package and the insurance package that we offer to our employees. Right? These are massive selling points, especially for people with families. Oh man, they're going to give me, you know, Cigna and Blue Cross and Blue Shield for my medical. Right? True, I would experience very different things, Lars, but the NHS was a nightmare over there, and everyone pays for it. Like Americans forget that too with it. You do know that your McDonald's job is going to pay taxes towards that. They're like, no, it won't, dude. I have a minimum wage at McDonald's. I'm not going to pay taxes. Okay. Americans think like that in the lower class. They're used to not paying taxes. No, music, it's not a problem. You're buying a service. No one owes you medical care. No one owes you anything. Dude, it is a service. And that's what people forget. It's not a basic human right. You don't have a right to someone else's skill and labor. You don't have any right to the doctors and nurses' 20 years of experience and 8-year degree and skill set. You don't have a moral right to their labor. It's a service. Right. But I'll get over to the other question. Someone asked me a trading question, but I'll hop to that. Let me get this first. Yeah, I mean, well, you're kind of screwed. You're screwed, but you're not, Lars. If you're truly, yeah, okay, Lars, if you choose not to work, you just say, I don't want to get a job. Yeah, you're effed. Like if you just make it no medical reason, no doctors are saying you can't work, you have no reason to not go get a job, a full-time job or work, and you just choose not to, oh, you're fucked if you get sick. Right? Yeah, that is like that in the US. You're screwed, dude. You're completely screwed. If you're actually have circumstances that put you there, the government will step in at that point. There are services available. There is coverage. There are community hospitals. Does that make sense? But you have to actually be sick or something really wrong with you. Something has to have happened to explain why you're not full-time employed beyond I just choose not to be. A major tragedy where you're getting, disaster aid, some sort of situation happened. You got really sick, right? Yeah. Well, music. So then you're a thief. You believe in slavery. That's what you're saying. You believe in slavery. You believe that if someone goes and becomes a doctor, they are your slave. That they have to give you services for free. That you're entitled to it. So you believe in slavery. Have a lump removed most fine. It's totally free, but it's not free, Lars. What percentage of your income do you pay in taxes towards that? It's not free. You prepaid for it 10 years ago already. So, Scott, it depends on what insurance you have. So, this is a very complicated question. Let me go ask this training question, though. Jason, how would you lay out a simple base building program before hopping to conjugate with starting strength? No, starting strength is inappropriate because of the progression. I mean, you could do starting strength, or you could just do something like strong lifts. Sure. No, I actually don't see it as black and white, but I want you to think about the fundamental premise. Your claim is that you see it as a basic right to the labor and skill set of other people. That is what it is. And I can tell you right now, until we fix our lifestyles, it's ludicrous for the taxpayer to subsidize the bad lifestyles in the US. As long as people keep eating junk food and drinking alcohol and all that, we absolutely, your lifestyle should not be covered by the taxpayer. Like if you choose to abuse your body, to feel entitled to doctor care because you chose to give yourself heart attacks and diabetes. You see what I mean? Is absolutely insane. If you're getting sick because of lifestyle induced choices, because you eat junk food, you drink soda, you eat chips every day, and then you have health problems as a result. You see what I mean? So then, because people have these make these lifestyle choices, then to think that you're entitled to the skill set, technology, and education of other people just as default. Come on. And you already know that here in the US, if someone is truly disabled, you're still going to get medical coverage. You already know Medicaid and stuff is going to kick in at that point. Well, they still have treatment. It's just that you're not going to get the bougie treatment, you know. But I mean, the NHS hospitals are definitely not like American hospitals. Like private hospitals, when you have insurance, they're not even comparable. Again, I've seen the NHS system versus, say, having private corporate insurance. I've had surgeries and stuff. I've had treatment under both, and I can tell you they're not anywhere near it. Well, absolutely music, but that's where you have medical reform for some of that. This is why we have to put caps on things like drugs. This is where government does have to step in with that, with industry. Um, but in terms of that too, so Lars, no, they won't let you die, Scott. They're not illegally allowed to let a patient die and not give treatment. The problem is the paying for it after. You could be into a heck of a fight. Like if you run up a $50,000 medical bill and you don't have any money or insurance, it's not like they're going to not treat you. You know. No, because they're paid employees, Lars. You know. But again, there's a lot of nuance. So ultimately, what people in the more socialized countries don't understand why everyone doesn't get the same treatment. The wealthy people in your countries come over here. They don't get your treatment. As someone who lives in Texas and Houston has had family working in there, do you think when people need heart surgeries, like who have money in your countries, that they get them there? No, they come to Houston. They go get the really good, really good medical because they can afford it. But when you break it down, you're like, so this is the illusion you guys have. That if you pay taxes for something, it's not free. Right? It's not free. So when it's all said and done, you're like, well, it's not costing me anything. Well, but you work for a company. You said you work in AI. I assume you have some sort of computer programming situation. So if you had that here, you would be working for a company that probably gives you really good insurance. And if you're married and your wife has the same, man, your insurance is double up. So when it's all done, you might have a $500 copay. Okay. I don't think about Obamacare. You might have a $500 copay, Lars, after the surgery because of all your insurance. But if you paid 100,000 less in taxes, right? Did getting rid of that $500 copay cost you $100,000 in taxes over the last few years? I'd rather pay the $500 than the 100,000. You know, and yeah, occasionally people get screwed with really high-end medical bills. And I'm not saying there's not complexity. These are why these are major political baits. But we also have to ask the fundamental question here. Why is our medical care so expensive? Okay. So another thing to ask about. Why is medical such a big expense in the US? I'll give you a hint. What sort of channel do I run? What percentage of Americans eat junk food regularly? What percentage of Americans don't work out? What percentage of Americans are obese? I mean, obesity is the number one killer. In the US, I can tell you right now, people get scared of, say, firearms. You're aware that obesity-induced disease has a 500 to probably 1,000 times higher chance of killing you than a firearm does. Unless you're in a profession that puts you at risk. You're a burglar, you're a gang member. It probably would even be 1,000. It would be even a bigger gap. You know, don't be a burglar. Don't be a member of a street gang. Don't join the Crips, the Bloods, the Latin Kings. Don't be a crack dealer. Don't break into people's houses. Don't get into physical confrontations with the police. Don't shoot yourself. Because of again, lifestyle choices. I mean, you're aware 90% of our medical issues, yes, accidents happen. Yes, genetics matter. 90% of our medical treatment in the US is lifestyle induced. You know? Well, that's another issue Alan I've talked about. Sadly, there are a lot of people in high crime rate areas with little options for escaping because of the high cost. So, what would get rid of some of the crime? So, Alan, you're made God Emperor of mankind. What's some of the largest drivers of the crime, those high crime rate areas? You have the full force of the military and police. How do you fix the crime problem? And the poverty area is the crime that keeps them poor. How about you use the military to wipe out all the drug cartels and you charge all the alcohol manufacturers with crime against humanity and you execute them? There's no alcohol really readily available other than bathtub gin. And there's no cocaine, there's no crack, there's no meth, there's no heroin, there's no fentanyl. What happens in those areas? They don't have access to alcohol, crack, or meth because you wipe it out, like with a real war on it. And I'm not saying this is what we automatically need to do. I'm just spinning an idea. What happens to those crime rates in poverty areas? There's no drugs and alcohol flowing into them anymore. You work on rehabbing people a little bit. What happens? Can those areas even exist anymore without the access to all these substances? right? But everyone pays in some way or another music. So, but it's not a universal right, is my point. That's a very strange utopian idea that people have, that it's somehow some right. Really, ultimately, don't have right to shit. I mean, in reality, this concept is that we have created as an enforced system of rights, um, that we as a society have decided on. You know, and a lot of stuff is protecting. You have to understand the American mindset. It's always about protecting people from government. Government's predatory. People worry about corporations. So, you want to trust government? Do you think government automatically draws in moral people? Do you think that the people who run for Congress and president are by default better moral people than the people who become CEOs of companies? Do you think it draws a better, highly more moral crowd that are going to look out for your best interests? True, Lars, they need alternatives, but you know what? As long as they're all addicts and it includes alcohol, it's kind of hard to do those alternatives, right? The flow of drugs and alcohol has to be stopped. If you will not end the thug life and the ghettos until the drugs and alcohol stop flowing into those communities. Because even the drug is enough because they just drink more alcohol. You've got to end the source of these addictions. All right. Beautiful says, regarding lifestyle health issues, do you sympathize with those who really try to be healthy but were misled by charlatans, carnivore, vegan? Why do you think I hate on those groups so hard? Why do you think I come at the vegans and the carnivores so hard? For exactly that reason. Lifestyle induced diseases, and you have people who are actually trying, and some trash dumpster piece of shit like Baker convinces them to stop eating vegetables. He's a piece of filth. Like, that is human filth, to prey on people seeking to be healthy like that, knowing he knows he's full of crap. He's a doctor. He knows better. But we put up with it. We tolerate it. I haven't. I've called out the charlatans in the industry, and it's been rough. I mean, hell, I got sued for it in the UK. The standard has been set. Many people noted that. I went from being a big name to, I have 14 people in my live stream. As it was said, we're going to make an example of you. That was said. Even Dr. Mike says, careful about telling the truth. Jason Blaha told the truth and they crucified him. Direct quote. Look at the hate campaign that was run against me. So what do you do about the charlatans? They'll crucify you. Unfortunately. I feel like fitness people they have a fetish for being ripped off, personally, for some reason. I don't know why. So people new to fitness, they almost get off to it. They like have some deep desire to be ripped off. Unfortunately, there's something wrong with a lot of people who choose to get into it. I need to get coffee. Hey, music, we can agree to disagree on that one. I don't think you understand the technology and power the U.S. military has. I think they could literally wipe out the cartels down to the last man, and I think they could do it in 30 days. So, but we could totally stop the flow. But that's where your economic problems are there. So we talk about these poverty areas. I'm sorry, it's the drugs and alcohol, and until you shut that stuff down, and I'm talking, you can't shut it down with a light hand anymore. We're not at that point. So if you really want to fix, if you say you want to fix those problems, then you have to have a pretty heavy hand with it, to the point where people will be screaming about human rights violations. But here's the other problem: people being hooked on meth and crack is a human rights violation too. And I'm aware it's not just coming from Mexico. So what happens if you quit making it a police matter? What happens if you actually use military for it? And I totally get that is a considered a conflict with separation of powers. But I mean, don't we skirt those issues anyways in the name of public safety? I mean, technically, let's be clear. By the written wording and statement of the founding fathers, background checks are a complete violation of your rights. Technically, a background check is a violation of your constitutional rights on the level that, in theory, the government should be paying you $1 million in damages in court for having done one background check, if we go by the letter of that. So if we can cross the line on that one, why can't we use the military to take out meth labs? It's at no higher level of offense against the Constitution at that point. Right. And again, I'm aware of that, music. But when the cost gets too high, like Trump did this last week, and the Dems are pissed in the oversight committees. Did you not see all that? He's been using the military to strike drug boats. He's been hitting them out in the ocean, like straight up using the Navy to just sink them. There's a start. You can dislike the man. I don't find him to be a particularly likable person, but there's a start. I'll applaud that. So let's apply that on a bigger level. But if you're not willing to do something about, right, Lars has a point. Singapore has a death penalty for drug dealing. Funny enough, they have is almost, yeah. People act like these measures don't work. It's the slap on the wrist. Like, if we want to take it, see, if we want to use the term war on drugs, all right, I don't see the SEALs or the drones. I don't see a war happening. That was a joke. They were never serious. So so you treat the same way with all the stuff coming in. You start giving the death penalty. How many people are willing to risk it to the same degree? And what happens when you cut that flow? The addicts lose their addiction a lot quicker. The demand drops. So if you can cut the supply, so you're like, well, we can't cut it 100%. Okay, cut it 80%. Let's say you can't stop that last 20% trickle because of all those factors. You cut the drug supply by 80% for 6 months, how much of the addiction goes away? When people can't get their stuff, they can't get their fix. A lot of those addicts start drying up. Yep, a lot of them are going to get desperate, but they're desperate but can't get the drugs. When 80% of the addicts get clean because they can't get their fix, they don't have a choice, what happens to demand? And then you do, like he's saying, death penalty for it. It's like now the demand's lower and the penalty is high. Way fewer people are going to be willing to take the risk to traffic this stuff or to mass produce or any of it. They're going to be looking at it going, man, demand is down and the penalty's going way high. I'm going to need to do something else here. And as he pointed out in Singapore, that's a hell of a deterrent. It's been an effective deterrent. It's an effective deterrent. And it's not like you don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of like when someone said, and I brought this up before, I'm like, yeah, you don't want to rob a house in Texas because it is an insanely high risk to your life. Right? Because we can just smoke you and everybody's armed. So I had someone say, man, I'd be scared to go into Texas. And I'm like, are you a burglar by profession? Is this what you do for a living? And the difference is it's not like you don't know the penalty. So here, that's a deterrent because people know that. Like, they know that their odds of dying if they burglarize a house is substantial here. So it's the same if you make it the death penalty for that with drugs. People know the risk at that point. So they've accepted it. It's not a problem. Not like you're making it retroactive. Like, hey, starting today, you get caught distributing meth or crack, that's it. You go on death row. Be like, well, I better stop doing this. A ton of people would stop, especially once they started actually executing it and it's hitting the news. Oh man, they killed 17 drug dealers this week. Jesus Christ. I need to go get a different job. I'm going to go find something else to do. Not saying it would stop all of it. It would have a substantial impact. Right? The reason in Texas is most of the burglars are people who are willing to risk it. They have Kevlar. They at least get body armor. Or they rob in groups on top of it. Like that's been a problem here is so if the robberies do happen, it's a pretty good chance it's going to be 3 guys wearing Kevlar. Which unfortunately for them, they're still probably in trouble with a lot of Texas households. Yeah. So since they're forced to use handguns, since they're small enough to be out with weapons of convenience and they have soft armor, that's not going to stop anything actually serious. Right? Like, for example, you kick in my door, Kevlar is not saving you. It's not going to do much of anything. You might as well just put a paper plate over your chest. It's just Kevlar, dude. Dudes aren't rolling in full heavy loadouts. They're not running plates. So, yeah. But yeah, there's your solutions, guys. So all those problems you talked about, well, you have to actually crack down on the drugs and you have to crack down on alcohol. So we can have those conversations about poverty-ridden areas and the people can't get out with no opportunities. Yeah, but the drug addiction and alcohol addiction keeps those areas that way. But that was the point. These are not solutions that people will be happy with. So I said, if you were made or I were made God Emperor of mankind, then it's a viable solution. We can't just execute people for production of alcohol. Right. Under the current system, we can't. I'm just planting seeds, just planting seeds, guys. Oh, just throwing it out there. In case we rebrand to get rid of the deficit. That's the problem we have too. If they don't balance the budget, we're going to have to get rid of the U.S. government. We're going to have to rebrand because we can't afford the debt they've run up. It's going to eventually have to be made insolvent because we're 40 trillion in debt. That corporation might have to go away. And then we have to create a whole new country and be a little more clear this time on the Second Amendment. Don't throw the frilly language in that they included because of the time period. Because the writers were all clear. They wrote in all their writings, they thought it was extremely clear what it meant. I mean, we explained it very clearly in the language of the time period. It's so that you can overthrow the government if they get out of line. That's why you have the Second Amendment. That's the entire reason it's written. It's a check and balance on the government by the citizens. They were very clear in that. They thought that they were clear in the writing, unfortunately, in the thing. But I think people don't realize that either. Do you guys understand that wasn't optional for a while? Like, how many people know that with American history? The Second Amendment wasn't optional. You guys who choose not to be armed would have been executed if you're under the age of 40. They would have charged you with sedition and executed you. In the first 6 years the U.S. was formed, you were charged with sedition and executed for failing to partake in the Second Amendment. You were a traitor. You chose not to own a weapon. You chose not to own a firearm and have ammunition on hand to be ready to defend your community. You were tried for that and could be executed. There's your context for understanding the Second Amendment. It wasn't even optional for a little while. It was enforced. You had to be armed as a fighting age male without something preventing you, without a good excuse. Well, I'm missing an arm, or feeble-minded. Jason, if we can load the push-up safely, is it a bad movement? Walk to Poland says, is it a bad movement? The problem is, how does it equal? It's not a bad movement. But think of it in terms of difficulty to load. And that would make more sense if bench presses weren't widely available, right? It's not like the push-up is going to do something significantly beyond what you would get from a bench press. And we just have bench presses are so convenient and easy. Plus, we have way more teaching techniques to avoid injuries on the bench. Like if you get hurt bench pressing, you literally are just not paying attention to any book or tutorial or your coach. My clients who get hurt on the bench press who don't listen to me and they do stuff I tell them to stop doing. I didn't fix the form stuff you told me to fix, and I chose to max out outside the rotation using the stupid form you told me to stop doing and screamed at me over. And now I'm in pain. Okay. True, I should just bench. I don't know what I'm thinking of really getting into these body weight movements. Yeah. So, but think of it in terms of just the loading and then the potential for wrist problems, everything. It's just benching works. And I like weighted body weight exercises, but loading push-ups is just not convenient. It has to involve multiple people. I'm not even answering. I'm not even going to read the question out loud either. So, right. I'm going to save you a lot of grief in life. I'm going to say, Music, how old are you? I'm going to help you out real quick with something because you do live in the U.S. How old are you? I think you're relatively young, but I'm actually curious. So, 28. All right. So you're not as young as I thought. You strike me as one of those guys who would ask a veteran, for example, if they've ever killed anybody. Just a bit of warning. Don't get too upset if you get hit in the mouth for that one, by the way. Don't freak out if the dude just knocks you out and whoops your ass at that point. Just be aware. Um, don't be super shocked if that happens or they get aggressive with you. So, but I'm not going to answer the question. So, next. Right. Alrighty. Has anything more than 5 sets of a single exercise dumb coach been training 20, 72 hours, getting 11 sets? Not necessarily dumb, but you've got to really question what it is that you're trying to get out of that training session. What? I would, are you talking about in a single session? Yeah, I don't know that I would do 5 for most exercises, honestly, outside of novice 5x5, generally exceeding about 3 sets of an exercise in a workout and start to turn into junk volume pretty quick. But I mean, there's a lot of nuance to that. Strength and hypertrophy you have been doing. Yeah, I mean 5x5 because again it's low enough reps. But there's going to come a point when reps start going up where to sustain performance is going to take really, 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 really long breaks. Just be aware. Yeah, but I mean something like a 5x5 definitely fine. I mean, I've done stuff like 10 triples on camera on exercises. Like there's a place for those things. But we start talking higher reps and other stuff. It can turn into junk volume very, very quickly. At least with something like 10 triples, you're keeping a substantial amount of weight. But even then, it's not going to be limit sets. You're still going to have a couple reps in reserve. Like you're still going to be working with your 5 rep max, and you might spend an hour on that. And I've trained it that way in the past. I mean, I've come in and deadlifted for an hour. I've come in and squatted or benched for an hour. But you get to a point where those triples are 5 minutes apart. And it might be your all out 5 rep max. So, I mean, I've done that on camera and stuff before, where, we come in and when I was doing a lot of overhead pressing, I like 185, 190 for 10 sets of three, right? But you're overhead pressing for an hour, you're deadlifting for an hour. And I've done those too, like deficit deadlifts. I've come in and done triples before, do like 475 for 10 sets of three, but they're 4 or 5 minutes apart. So you're there for an hour doing one exercise, and it works. Um, the reason I ask is because we're going to firearms. The question is always in the back of your head. So muscle, this is music. This is why for those situations you need, if you really care about that, you need appropriate training, right? You need appropriate training. You need to have your skill set up to where it's muscle memory, right? And maybe you should get some training by people who actually have combat experience and firefight experience. Would be my recommendation. Fortunately, that is insanely easy to get today. But a degree of proficiency. So you need to get to where everything is muscle memory. Where your draws, your reloads, everything needs to be to muscle memory level. I mean, you're a musician, music's ain't light, just like your guitar stuff. Do you have to put any thought into, running the same scales and licks and stuff that you do all the time? No. So you need to have your firearm proficiency in handling at that same level. Would be ideal. And I wouldn't even use the law enforcement. Law enforcement are not known for their shooting skills. Law enforcement are known for piss poor marksmanship. Like, this is well understood. Like, it's almost a meme at this point. Your strength workouts that you post online improve your explosive potential, but do you ever do specific workouts put your explosive pistons to the test? Yeah, you don't see me do explosive work on camera. So I'm not doing speed work right now, but you don't see me do jumps and throws and stuff. You don't see any of my plyometrics. You don't see my med ball throws and stuff like that. My sled sprints. I do all that stuff on camera, Desert. Coaches to go. What's up, Pep and Matt? All right. So watch later today, Desert. It's going to be a GPP day. I'm probably going to do some throws and some box work, some box jumps today. I'm gonna have to do it early because I have a consultation at 10, and then I have something I got to do later. Yeah. So we have med ball throws. I do box jumps. So that's explosive. I'm not currently doing dynamic work with bands and chains. So when I run conjugate phases, you'll see me doing speed work, rotating waves of bands and chains in 3-week waves on dynamic effort work with barbell exercises, speed boxes, speed pulls, speed benching. I'll jump squats holding dumbbells. No, be very careful with that. No, you need to jump onto a box. Don't cry when you rupture an Achilles tendon. Has coach made it to do med ball throws into sprints and bear crawls? Yeah, let's do med ball throws, right? There you go. Right. What sport were you playing? Walk to Poland? Oh man, I totally forgot to hit those buttons. Costing me money. Why am I not hitting my buttons? get the next one up. Give me a minute here, guys. I can't hit it because I just hit that button. I got to load up some more stuff into the Facebook post. I don't see how I'm going to get that bonus this month. I'm so silly. I'm obsessing over $44. Jesus Christ. What's wrong with you, Jason? Because it's mine. That's my money. They offered me the bonus if I... And it's stupid. This one's about if you make X amount of money, we'll pay you an extra 44 on top of it. It's like, really? Y'all messing with me? Why y'all trolling Coach like that? All right, back to you guys. Wrestling 195 weight class. I heard hill sprints are best for explosiveness. You heard wrong, Desert. Power cleans too. I'm not saying hill sprints aren't useful, but best for explosiveness? I mean, that doesn't even make sense biomechanically, right? Right. So, let me ask you a simple question. I'm going to ask you a simple question. So you're saying you're in a situation where bullets start flying. Do you think you'd be better off with no training? So the bullets start flying and you haven't obtained a high degree of muscle memory with the use of your firearm. Do you think that's good? Use some common sense. So it's just like, use some common sense. If you have trained with your proficiency to the point to where your heart rate doesn't come up when you draw and start putting rapid fire rounds on paper, and you can reload in 1.5 seconds, mag change, rechamber, and be back on target. If you've done this to where you can do that without your heart rate going up at all, versus no training once the bullets start flying, which one of those situations would you rather be in? When you can now handle your weapon without any adrenaline response, and you're at muscle memory level. If you can casually draw without your heart rate going up, you can draw, start putting rounds on target, drop a mag, reload without thinking about it. No change in heart rate, just super chill. Are you in a better position in that situation once the bullets start flying? When you no longer have to consciously think about it. When you can do it as a reflex. It kind of matters. Just think that through for a moment. Do as many tire flips in 10 minutes. Round has to be great. Yeah, that can help. Well, not too many. So as soon as it turns into endurance, it's not carrying over to explosive, right? 10 minutes? No, you can't sustain explosiveness for 10 minutes. There's no explosive carryover. Zero. That's endurance. Coach, you ever feel like your joints are stiff and hurting if you don't train? I don't know. I don't know what it's like to not train anymore. Yeah. How fast does it take you on average to draw, put around, reload? I mean, I've got it on camera. You can time it yourself. Give me a second here. And these are all center target hits. The magazines are 15 rounds each, and I have a reload in the middle from a low ready position. So it's pretty the same as a draw for me. It's low ready. Let me pull the clip up. Take me a minute. So I don't know, the reload's what, less than 2 seconds? So about 1.5 seconds to get the first round from a low ready on paper into a bullseye. My low ready from draw is the same time. From a holster. All right. So here you go. So that's 30 rounds with a reload in the middle. Coach, a lot of big cities offer Israeli Krav Maga certified combat shooting training courses are great for beginners. You don't have to do Krav Maga. Why are you doing specifically Krav Maga instead of just a combat handgun course? Why do you need to specifically do the Israeli system? Coach, I did deadlifts yesterday, 5x5, 102 kilograms overhand grip. My grip gave out. You need to switch to mixed grip. But I feel a lot of fire on people who have unrealistic. So I don't disagree with that music. So go get appropriate training. But here's the thing. You should still be training to that degree of muscle memory. All right. So without me going into any detail, because it's not anyone's business, are you asking me, do I have actual professional training in tactical handgunning? Are you asking me, have I ever taken and passed classes on it? Like, do I have actual professional instruction? Yes. So if that is what you were asking, and I'm not going to go into further detail, but yes, I have taken actual professional classes in this by experts who are certified experts. All right. On how to deal with these things, how to deal with entanglement, how to maintain my weapon while someone's grappling and wrestling me to the ground and continue to shoot them without hitting myself. You ain't alone. I skip stretching more than I do them. Yeah. I don't stretch. No. I don't stretch before or after my runs. I don't even know what Team Fortress is. Walked up on them. I've never heard of that. So no, I mean, I would advise you. You're talking about going and becoming, a security guard. I mean, I would probably take a class. I would take some classes, and especially if you're going to carry, it wouldn't be a bad idea. Fortunately for me, when I graduated high school, my next door neighbor owned a shooting academy and taught classes. He lived across the street. So, and he did a lot of competitive handgunning, like actual competitions. Sometimes I do a bit of foam roller after the workout. I don't do any of that. I just don't get anything out of it. I used to be a foam roller, by the way. Dude, I used to foam roll like religiously. I don't bother. It doesn't really do much. I didn't notice any difference. Yeah. Oh, when you're a runner. Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I find hydration and sleep matter more than anything when I'm running. Yeah. Rest and hydration. Stop using Chat GPT for any of this, but I don't disagree. So box jumps, power cleans, broad jumps. I do box jumps. So anything exceeding 5 reps is not going to increase your power, by the way. That's why you're like, do these tire flips. Did you do 3 of them? You got to rest 30 seconds. You can't maintain explosiveness. So after any explosive movement, you need at least 30 to 45 seconds rest before you try to replicate that energy system again. It won't work otherwise. All right. Does language restraint his armor? What? Uh, uh, his language restraint walks in, do 5x3 power cleans, then starting strength method. Right? Yeah, it doesn't do. I've not found the foam roller helpful, and I still have foam rollers. I used to foam roll religiously. I don't get anything out of them. So I mean, and music, some of it shouldn't be hard to figure out. I mean, anyone who's kind of stalked me kind of knows my circles. It should be pretty clear I'm surrounded by enough special forces people, SWAT people, and stuff in my personal life by the people who've done digging that I obviously continue to get lots of training my entire adult life. How are you going to have your circle be like this and not everyone be doing this stuff regularly? It's common sense. Do tissue massage guns. I like my massage gun even if it's placebo. I think it might have arthritis. By the way, I don't know. My mom has it. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. Diet can help though. Get your inflammation under control. I see these guys deadlifting up to 180 and they're doing a whole workout and calling it a warm up. What? Who are these people? Yeah. Hmm. I don't know what the TB12 method is. I don't know what is this nonsense. Uh, there you go, music. I would say anyone who's never been in any firefighter, like so. Even the thing with training and carrying, a lot of it comes down to your basic duty, right? And I know people don't agree with me on this, and that's fine. Not everyone has to be a real man. Not everyone has to do these things. But for me, it's a basic obligation, right? It is a basic obligation of a man to his society and community to be armed and trained and be ready to defend his community. This is basic manhood stuff to me. If we're going to get into these conversations about the mindset and role of a man, right? I place it in that category, and I totally get a lot of people won't understand or agree, particularly from other cultures, to where their culture has been cucked by their government a little bit. I get it, but historically that was the case before your government's cucked you. All right, that has always been the role of men for all of human history. Jason, behind the back deadlift still a bad exercise? I think they're silly. I'm not a fan of that. The traditional hack squat is what that's called. All right. They're doing like 8 reps with 1 plate, 5 reps with 2 plates, 5 reps with 3 plates, 2 with 3.5, 1 rep single slightly under their training backs. I don't know what they're doing with that. Let me rephrase that. I am fully familiar with the theory behind it. Let me be clear. I'm not saying I don't know what they're trying to do. You don't see me doing that crap to deadlift. We just go balls deep, and the people are like, "My God, your deadlifts are insane." I don't do any of that stuff. 1 or 2 warm-up reps, and then you're balls deep, right? Yeah. Why do you not do any martial arts? Well, I think that's a very personal question. Short answer, resource commitment. I feel like it would be a waste of valuable time and money to me for no payoff. Would you consider non-lifters who carry real men? I mean, a lot of things that make someone a real man. But my point with the carrying is the defense of your community is the whole point. And that's in the context of living in a culture to where your government doesn't put you in prison for it, right? That is obviously contextual. Oh, I was wrong. It wasn't even 135. It was 115, apparently. So we come over to Rufio, what defines, and I just use the term real man because the internet has clouded the historic terms. Before the internet and the goofy red pills and the dudes misusing the term, everyone just used the term alpha male. And everybody knew what it meant. It wasn't a point of contention. It wasn't this was the way the internet portrays it. Right? Everybody knew. Everybody knew what that was. This was not a debate. It wasn't something that people argued about. It was just a term people used. If you come from a different generation, you know this already. Right? Growing up, you knew John Wayne was an alpha male, right? It was very simple. This was understood. So we'll just use the term a real man, right? No, I mean, veneers wouldn't prevent me from doing martial arts. I don't see it as a good use of my time or money. Uh, and it's very straightforward without going into further details. No, the veneers doesn't prevent me from doing martial arts. It's not preventing me from lifting anymore. All right. But where were we? Um, with that concept of a real man, it comes down to consider things a code of honor, right? That's a defining characteristic. But then we have to ask, what does your code of honor include? Right? What does your code of honor include? Defending your community, being ready to be in those situations, and we have to put it in context. We live in a world where firearms are not going away. Right? The U.S. is there's no way to disarm the U.S. This is simply impossible. I'm simply saying it. This people talk about think getting rid of drugs would be hard. Talk about trying to get rid of guns in the U.S. That would be 100 times harder to do than to wipe out the drugs. It wouldn't. They're not even in the same tier. Like getting rid of every last drop of illegal drugs in the U.S. would take 1% of the effort that clearing out the guns would at this point. All right. Music, you sure ask a lot of personal questions about my medical condition. Why don't you go read up on it? Because you're asking like what I consider very weird questions. Like I don't even understand where you're coming from at all. Um, like I don't understand the source of the question. I feel like you're just asking random stuff about my Meniere's disease. Uh, it used to prevent me from walking down the street. All right. Uh, watch Mike as your tails roasting of the TB12 method. There we go. Oh, so it's all Tom Brady. So you guys really think that whatever Tom Brady is marketing and selling at this is really the secret to his success, guys? Yeah. Oh. Well, go do some digging. I mean, here's the thing, music. I don't want to stand around and have to talk about my medical condition I've overcome. You know, that I'm in remission and it worked. It's like I don't want to stand around and dwell on it all the time, man. Like, are you trying to depress me? You know, yeah. A well-rounded man would, this is what Rufio says, would lift, protect, carry, provide, and reproduce. You only lay claim to three of those markers. Yeah, fair. Um, different cultures are no, but in some countries, people don't take that well. Right. Yeah, definitely. Well, he's an American. He knows better. He's from claims he's in Texas. But you could go do basic reading on a disease without me having to redo it. Because quite frankly, it's not a topic I enjoy standing around talking about. To be fair, I would much rather talk about guns and lifting all day long than my medical condition that I've managed to work around and get into remission. You know, because fixating on stuff like that isn't good. It's how you program yourself to make stuff worse again. Just move on. It's never going to go away. I deal with some problems with it, but I make it work. Um, Why not? I've done some BJJ. You asking for me? Coach has Limitless have been on. No, Limitless hasn't been in today. Coach, is there most crossover between lifting and pew pews? I would say so. Wrestling is better. How do I put this with that? I mean, some of the most insane shooters in the world don't necessarily lift, but is there some usefulness in the carryover? Sure, obviously. You have more options. Like a stronger person obviously can retain a weapon, control a weapon, or whatever better. Like strength matters in that context up to a certain point. All right. True to some point. And I would say, so let's say, for example, you're talking with handgunning. You might not be a significant difference if you just choose to do 9mm. But what if you go to some harder hitting cartridges? Recoil control, weapon control kind of matters. So you might not see much from it from getting much stronger if you're just carrying a 9mm and you're not using plus P loads. Minimal difference, really. But what happens if you go to 10mm? I mean, 45, we can make that case too. But what if you decide, hey man, I want to start carrying 10mm? The difference between a guy who can only bench 100 pounds versus 315 and deadlift 500 or whatever, firing a 10mm, it's going to be a completely different animal. And again, depending upon the weight of the weapon, obviously. All right. Desert, what milestones that your clients reach would the most bring you the most reward? I don't know specifically. It's too hard to pin that down. I've had so many clients with so many different goals that I don't have a good answer for that. I went to a boxing gym one time, got effed up. One of my tooth died from being hit, so I have to get a re. I've had fights before last year. I got in one in trade school. We have noticed that as well against size, people less likely to try it or to talk down to it. They don't at all. I have no concept of these things. And I've said that before. People will talk about stuff in public, and I'm like, if it was not for the internet, I wouldn't know that people are anything but polite. If I didn't deal with weirdos online and people behind keyboards and the way people act on social media, I would have no real life concept of anyone being anything but polite. Everywhere I go in public, everyone is polite to me, or they don't engage me in any way. If they're kind of blocking your way somewhere in a grocery store, they see you and move their cart and go, "I'm sorry," and they simply get out of your way. That's how people behave in the real world. That's how people act when they're not on social media. They don't want to get in your way. They're polite. They move out of your way. They apologize. Everybody. It doesn't matter where you go. They act that way, and it doesn't matter where you go. That's how people behave. People get out of your way and apologize. Everybody does. All right. Gotcha. So the internet is very strange to me in comparison. The internet people will say all the crazy stuff. Oh, you look terrible. You look shit. You look hard. Do you even live for tiny? In real life, I've literally been told by a woman I look like a Greek god who's a friend of mine. People will say stuff like, wow, you're super jacked. Wow, you got massive arms. Wow, you have great calves. How much do you bench? Can you give me workout advice? That's how everyone responds to you in person versus the internet. Totally different world. So if I didn't deal with silliness on social media, I would have no clue walking around that I'm not Arnold Schwarzenegger. I would be oblivious to the fact that I don't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I wouldn't have any idea. What's one fitness myth you believe as a beginner that still makes you cringe? That I believe as a beginner. How are we defining a beginner? Um, oh, definitely. So as a beginner, so it would make me cringe now. Oh, that you need extended sets to maximize growth. That's definitely there. When I was really early, like my first few months lifting, because of all the dudes I trained around, I thought that if you wanted to grow, you had to take everything to absolute complete failure. That means stripping weights, drop sets, rest, pause, every single set. If you really were trying to gain as much muscle as possible. Because that's how everybody else was doing it. And all the younger guys all did that. We all went crazy with it. And we thought that at the end of bench pressing, you had to strip all the way down to the empty bar and rep the empty bar to complete failure. And a spotter had to help you do forced reps with the empty bar at the end of every bench session. We actually thought this. You were supposed to do everything to failure, and if you had spotters to help, you were supposed to do drop sets and force reps on everything. If you were trying to get as much as possible, if you're trying to gain as much muscle as possible. So we thought we were supposed to do curls the same way. That if you could do 25-pound dumbbells, when you reached failure, you were supposed to grab the 15s. When you reached failure, you were supposed to go to the 5s. And we thought we were supposed to do that. That's how all the beginners and all the gyms I was at, we all trained like that. Right. So that's stuff we believed. We all believed that we had to get protein immediately post workout too. Like you couldn't wait till you get home. So that was definitely cringe. If you didn't bring protein shakes to the gym, it was pretty much a wasted workout. Like you couldn't wait. It had to be 15 minutes of your last set. So these are things that I believed as a beginner and was taught by other people and didn't know better. And we all thought we were supposed to do that. We thought that even training on your bench, you had to do everything to failure with spotters all the way down to the empty bar. Strip the plates down, and then the last set you still had to immediately at the end of the last set, you had to go all the way to the empty bar to failure, and then have the spotter help you do 4 or 5 more reps with the empty bar when you couldn't lift it anymore. We thought that's what we were supposed to do. That if you didn't, you were leaving gains on the table. You were only getting like 95%. We all thought that way. I don't like that whole being a real man stuff. Well, that's, I think, why do you feel that way on music? People thought I was using the trade, but those on 4chan called me out of shape, right? Right. I mean, real world versus the internet, bros. All right, I'm gonna be right back. No, I don't like Cardi B. I think she's pretty disgusting. All right, we're back. How long does it take the average young musclehead to believe they are a weightlifting expert? They seem to act like people who could perpetuate bad advice. Um, they seem to know everything in the first 6 months or years, what they feel like. Music, would you delete, man? You aren't happy. You wrote something you didn't. What did we miss there? All right. Jason, would you surrender your gun if it meant your tax rate was 100%? They pay you double what you earn. I just got to give them one. I just got to give them one gun for this. Can I give them a cheap one, like a $500 one? Some of them. Well, how many? I need a number. Dude, I tell you what. How many guns do you think? How many guns did you hear that I own? Rufio, you sound like a Fed. You sound like ATF. All right. I live in a state to where the state makes it illegal for the government to track and know how many guns you own, by the way. It's illegal for the government to have all that info in Texas. All right. So how many guns? Jason, would be worth giving away your guns or going vegan? Neither one. Well, music, that's not the same thing that we're talking about, is it? So you're back over to fake bravado. If you could genetically enhance one muscle group for life, but it'd make another 20% weaker, deal or no deal? I don't know. I don't know. So I tell you, let me give you a better answer to your question about the tax thing. If surrendering my gun, that is non-plural, made my taxes go away. Let's not even say they pay me anything. That all my IRS taxes immediately go away and forever. Shit, which one they want, dude? I'll give it over right now. Pick one. Any of them. You can have my favorite one. I'll just buy another one. I'll give them 3. How's that sound? They can have 3. Any 3 they want. No questions. Like straight up, dude. I'd do it right now, today. Wouldn't even have to think twice, but I'd never pay the IRS ever again. All my taxes go away. Hell yeah, they can have any 3 they want. I'll let them pick. They can have my 3 favorite. They can have even my most sentimental valued one that I will normally never get rid of. I haven't shot it in over 20 years. They can even have that one. But I never pay taxes again? Hell yeah, I'll go buy 50 more. All right. Jason, how much would you need to weigh to have abdominals like Michael Hearn? I don't know. 190. You know? Yeah, I think that's totally cool, dude. Got a couple $500 guns, and I don't pay taxes. Dude, that is such a massive win. In fact, I'll go a step further. Bro. All my taxes are deleted permanently for the IRS for the rest of my life, starting from here forward. They can have every gun that they know that I currently own in exchange up front today. Every gun that they know about that I have, they can have all of them in exchange for that. Of course, the question would be, how many do they think I have? It'd be like, we think you have 11. Great, you can have those 11. Done. Right now, bro. I think that's totally fair. Done. Easy. How easy of a question was that, man? Because I could pretty much replace all of those with 1 year worth of taxes. This is not a problem. I could do that without even having to deal with a background check. I just go to Texas Gun Trader right now and pay cash for them. You know, Texas forbids background checks for non-dealers selling you their used guns for the most part. So there's no transfer. They don't want it tracked. You know, the rule, for those curious, for private sales in the state of Texas, what the law requires, you cannot knowingly sell one to a felon or someone who is legally prohibited from owning firearms. You can't, quote, knowingly. So Peppermint here, and his full legal name is Peppermint Freedom. I see his ID, it says Peppermint Freedom. And I go, Peppermint. You want to buy whatever this clock 21 from me? Yeah, cash. And I said, Mr. Freedom, are you a felon? Hey, bros, are you a felon? You go, no, dude, I've never broken the law. And I have no reason to believe that you have. Oh, no, mate, I'm an American citizen here, and I ain't never broke no laws, mate. Oh, I follow, I got a license for everything. Okay? And you say, I'll give you $600 cash for that right there. Mate, I'm an American citizen, never broke no laws. And I see the strips, the bills aren't counterfeit. That's a legal transaction. We have fulfilled all legal requirements in the state of Texas for a firearm transfer and sale. No receipt required. If you want one, we can do one, a bill of sale, but it's not required. And then you go about your merry way. And I have $600, and that's how the law works. And the state of Texas refuses to change that. Okay. Should George Bush be arrested? No, I don't think so. So, nice doing business. This is a private sale. I'm not a licensed distributor. Right. Now, to purchase a new firearm, that's a different rule. Now, that's a totally different. Because that's the manufacturers can only distribute to FFA, and they have to do a background check. Now, private FFAs will take online sales, and they usually charge you $25 for the background check. But you also can't be purchasing it for someone else unless it's intended as a gift. Like someone can't legally send you to buy their gun, but you can buy it as a gift and then give it away as a gift. Right? The whole hyper-masculinity thing is common in Mexican culture. Was the machizo thing. But that's not what we're talking about, music. You're talking about bravado, and I'm talking about being a man. I didn't go, say, man, if you want to be a man, you got to hit that bitch. Like, that's not what we're talking about, dude. We're talking about actually being a man. We're not talking about bravado, because I know exactly what you're talking about. I have a Hispanic family. I know, dude. I know exactly what you're talking about. I get it. You're talking about, overgrown boys. Because you think driving a truck is essential to being a real man. No, not mature men. But I know exactly what he's talking about, very specifically. And there's the term for that. There's an actual term for that. Let me see if I pronounce it correctly. Right. Okay, so here we go. We're going to get the AI overview. Machismo in Mexico refers to a strong sense of masculine pride and traditional masculine emphasizes honor, strength, and dominance. The problem is the way it's expressed, is what he's talking about. This cultural ideology can manifest in various ways, including boys being expected to be the sole provider and to maintain an image of toughness while suppressing emotional vulnerability, and so on. So here's where they're talking about the downside. It perpetuates harmful gender roles, contributes to the devaluation of women, and is linked to negative consequences such as domestic violence and femicide. You're talking about the more extreme cases. So, but we're also talking about that that bravado that comes with it. It's not the same, because we come over back to a real man as a protector of women and children. Yeah, we got bravado guys in the UK that think they're all war mate, right? Yeah, right. hold on. I got the best post. Y'all check this meme. This is great right here. This is from my page. I just put this one up before the stream. It's already doing well. No, Sean, I don't need to be cussing and using profanity on here. Trying not to. But check that meme. There we go, guys. Spitting some truth for people. So something I was thinking about this week too. I think I'm going to go back to doing my curls on my main days, and I'll just do some shoulder work. Because I had someone tell me, "Do you wear sunglasses?" I have sunglasses. Yeah, I have prescription sunglasses. I have glasses that turn dark. Right. So I have a pair of prescription glasses that are in the sunlight, they turn into sunglasses. So I've had them for a while. But they kind of said to me, and it's something I've been thinking about. Why don't you train your arms like you? They're like, you train your legs harder than your arms. Why don't you train your arms like if you trained your biceps the way you trained your legs? And I've been thinking about that. What would happen if I did train my biceps the way I trained my legs? I'm not willing to go quite that far. But what would that really entail? Because I do 5 times as much arm training as I do leg training. Like I think most people realize this. I do way more bicep work than I do quad work. Like they're multiple tiers apart. What do you got? And it makes your feet and ankles tougher, man. It's my recent straight bar cable curls, great movement for bicep development, lightens them up. Do you think Rich Piana? What do you mean? I don't understand the question, Decoy. No, I don't miss Rich Piana at all, dude. Do we need to really discuss Rich? I just get cranky doing cardio in general, Sean. It's not because it's barefoot. So, but I mean, setting aside the curls and stuff. So if I really trained my arms the way that I trained my legs, what would that mean? Right? Just get really, really, really strong at weighted chin-ups and maybe some heavy curls and keep the volume excessively low. Right? Focus on nothing but progressive overload and keep the volumes under 10 sets a week. Right? Maybe weighted chin-ups and then maybe at most 5 or 6 sets of curls and stop. I pondered that question. So what would happen if I quit obsessing over my arms like a bodybuilder and trained them the way that I train my legs? Would my arms get significantly bigger if I dropped the stupid bodybuilding stuff I do and quit training them like a bodybuilder and trained them the way I train my legs as a power lifter? Because dudes be saying that. They're like, you spend way more time on your legs. Your legs are way overdeveloped. You should train your arms the way that you train your legs, who don't know what I do. But that's an interesting question to ponder, isn't it? What would happen if I trained my arms the way that I trained my legs? Meaning we forget all this high rep shit. We forget we just say isolation doesn't matter. It's useless. All that matters is getting strong. That's it. But I do sleds and other stuff, which help. But I mean, it would just be, let's just obsess with weighted chin-ups. That's basically, because that's how I built my legs, right? We just lift heavy AF. I don't bodybuild for my legs. I don't have to, man, you know? Yeah. I think the Pion days, you're a lot more lightheaded. YouTube is very serious and sinister. Yeah, it can be. Legs are our base. They need to be overdeveloped in order to have. But I mean, Rufio, but I think that people didn't understand. They're thinking that I train my legs more than I train my arms. I don't. I do way more arm work than I do leg work. Right? And for years and years and years and years, I didn't even squat for a year and a half. I had a year and a half on here some time back. Where I took 18 months off from any direct quad work, including squats. I just deadlifted. Deadlifts were my only quad exercise for a year and a half. I'm just saying this as a thought experiment. But I train my legs really hard, but with very low volume. Right? Hey, Lars, good luck with you. Hey, guys, Lars is going in for surgery today. Everybody wish him good luck. I'm going to ban you if you don't wish him good luck. You guys better get on it. Better wish that man some good luck. I'll drop the kapows on him for you, Lars, if they don't. By force. No, good luck, Lars. But I did think about that. What would happen if I did? What if I only did 2 sets of curls in a workout and just stopped? Just took them to failure. Just push them really hard. What happens if I really pushed the weight up on the weighted chins? What if I did a top set, like I do my squats and my benching and other stuff? I'm just saying. Because I could come in and not do them on the GPP. I could just do some overhead stuff with kettlebells and that's like. Right. Do you watch any sports? Women's figure skating. All right. I've been saying that for 20 years, by the way, every time I get you notice it was a reflex. Jason, what's your favorite sport? Women's figure skating. That's the only sport that straight men watch right there, baby. That is the sport of the men who love pussy. All right, afternoon, coach. You got back from the gym. Hope this is only just started. We're not going to run it much longer. I got to get GPP done fairly soon. Not quite yet, because I have a consultation at 10. I need to have all my training done by then, and then I have possible plans after that for a bit today. I like women's beach volleyball. I support Brazil and Sweden. Thank you guys. See you on the flip side. There you go. Dude, women's figure skating is the best sport because they have like phenomenal glutes and legs always. Or the unaware, and everybody knows this. It's like, okay, people claim they know anything about Jason Blaha, right? Anyone who knows Jason Blaha, really knows Jason Blaha, knows that I have a leg fetish. This is common knowledge. If you don't know that, you don't know anything about me at all. You do not know anything about Jason Blaha. I have a fetish for women's legs. That is my thing. Everybody knows this. If you don't, you didn't do any research on me. And apparently none of my haters did any research on me. They could have just asked and people would have told them this. They could have asked any one of my exes. Right? So obviously women's figure skating is the greatest sport of all time. Yeah. Right? Like this is anybody in my family, any of my exes, my bros, they all know this. Everybody knows this who knows me. Not like I don't talk about it for 30 years straight. Not like this is not a regular part of conversation. Everyone who knows me, they'd be like, hear me saying, oh man, she has some nice legs. Oh, wow. Yeah. Not like people haven't heard it 1,000 times, So common knowledge, guys. So it's very obvious that women's figure skating is the greatest sport of all time. Straight up. I'm a man of culture. Right? And I've known this about myself since I was like 5 years old. I've known this about myself. First time I saw standing there a woman with nice legs wearing pantyhose. As a kid, I was mesmerized. In fact, my mom had to explain you can't do that. I had reached up to touch them. It's like, oh, I got to touch that. I was 5. I didn't know any better. You can't do that. Like, but they're really pretty. All right. And this hasn't changed in over 40 years. So, right. I like legs. So, and that's true. I am being dead serious. That's why it's funny, Peppermint, because I am being 100% like dead serious. All right. That's actually really happened. But they're pretty. I want to touch them. Yeah. Yeah. Where do I find funny Olympic bike race in their legs? I don't think those legs came from just riding a bike. Well, a lot of those bikes you're thinking of, those Olympic, is from riding more than one type of bike, bro. You know, if you're familiar with lifter slang, riding a bike, man, doing a cycle. It's also called riding a bike as a slang term. They're doing more than one type of riding a bike. It's all cumulative, right? Right. Oops. That's my point, is too obvious, right? Not many natty Olympians as well must help those. I mean, let's be realistic, bros. We all know Olympians aren't drug free. Remember, I covered this years ago. Remember the 2012 Olympics? I covered this on my channel back in the day. 2012 Olympics, how much did they spend on drug testing? I covered this in vast detail on my channel. $4 billion, right? That's why they want to go. The records are going to stay the same in the enhanced games. $4 billion spent in drug testing for the 2012 Olympics. Not million, billion. $4 billion was spent on drug testing for the 2012 Olympics. That was the bill. That's how much drug testing they did. We all know this and we're familiar. There's your context. Please note, billion, not million. 1,000 times billion. There's 1,000 times as much in a billion as a million. All right. I just let them blast. Why? Just no. I'd remove the restrictions, David. Hey, $4 billion. They kept some of the urine samples. Okay, now keep in mind, you can't retroactively ban in sports. Why? Because you agreed to pass the current drug testing. You can't come up with a new test and retroactively apply it to people who didn't know they were going to be subject to that test. Okay, in 2013, what happened? A lab developed a new test for the specific steroid turinabol, which has been used since the 70s. What's special about T-bol compared to other orals with a 17-alpha alkylated molecule? It had an insanely short metabolite detection time. Okay. Now, there are some that have none, but as far as well-established long-term anabolics, for 30 or 40 years, researchers couldn't develop a test for that one that would, no, it's not even the short, it's the same half-life as Depot, same half-life as Anavar, right? It's all the same half-life. The metabolites cleared the body really, really, really fast. Okay. So because of that, it only had a 72-hour detection time. In other words, the metabolites disappeared out of your urine 72 hours after you took it, unlike Depot, which was like 3 weeks, the same half-life. So your body metabolized the metabolites really fast on turinabol. So if you hadn't taken it in 72 hours, it came up clean, which is rare. Like for an alkylated molecule, it should be there for weeks. It's not like there's no ester or anything. Like test no ester is a 12-hour detection time. Right? We know this, right? Everyone knows this. There's no way to detect it past about 12 hours. But turinabol, 72 hours. What happened in 2013? A lab developed a test that could find the metabolite longer. The new test, it went from 72 hours to a 7 to 10 day detection life, which means after you took the pill, it could show up for as long as 7 and in a few cases 10 days after you took it. We went from 3 days to 7 to 10. What happened in 2013 that made the news? They applied the new test to some of the old frozen urine samples from the year before the 2012 games. They spent $4 billion testing. What happened when they tested all those urine samples that had passed clean on the old test? Right? What happened? They found over 200 positives with the new test from frozen old batches from the previous games that had all tested 100% clean. They found over 200 cases of that one specific steroid alone, purely by increasing the detection window by 4 to 7 more days. Over 200 out of just that one batch of frozen year-old samples. They spent $4 billion on that testing previously. So you have that case, and then people will say stuff like, I think the Olympics are kind of clean. I think there's some clean people out there. Mind you, that wasn't the whole host of the 50 drugs they test for. That was one really old drug that was developed in like 1972. Right? Do you really think them removing that is going to affect the performance? You really think the enhanced games are going to break any records? Yeah. 46 medals from the Olympics were reallocated. Were they? Oh man. Is there a way to have a drug-free sport? No. Stop removing competition. Get rid of all the medals, all the money, all the competition, and it will clean up somewhat. People would still use drugs just for their ego, though, just because they're competing against another person. Welcome to humanity. See, you're not an athlete, music. I'm an athlete. I compete. I got medals. Remember when they interviewed all those Olympians and they were asked in a survey, if right now you could go to your sport and win a gold medal this year, but in exchange, you died 2 years later. Would you do it? You know how many Olympic athletes said they would do that? They would take that deal. It was like 40%. That's the mindset of a competitor. That's the mindset of a serious athlete. You win. Right. Chinese swimmers swimming faster than a damn shark. Right. You really think you're going to have a drug-free sport? No. Competitors play to win. Is it possible from a scientific? I mean, they spent $4 billion on that in the 2012 games, music. Are you asking, could it hypothetically be possible one day? I mean, they threw $4 billion at it that year for the Olympic Games. $4 billion and researchers, biologists, doctors working on that. $4 billion, they didn't achieve it. Sure, it's hypothetically possible. Thus far, we're not there. We do not have the technology to achieve this. Right. Why is my power supply popping at me? What's going on? Is it power flickering? I have an uninterrupted power supply. It just popped for a minute. It's back good. They're tested every 4 days. Well, what if I make a drug that you can't detect? Do I know what time you're testing me? I don't even need undetectable drugs. There's plenty of drugs like that. Balco Labs, man, remember that was their whole business. Remember when Victor Conte got popped? His whole lab was dedicated to nothing but making new steroids all the time that were not detectable yet, and working them in a rotation for professional athletes. Dude, there's money in sports. If it only costs you $1 million or $500,000 to develop an undetectable steroid that it takes a year for them to make a test for, and you only spend 500 grand making it, you're going to make a lot of money. Because how many athletes are going to pay you for it? New steroid can't be detected. It take them a year, 2 years to make a test. Baby, I'm dropping 20 grand to pop. All my buddies are dropping 20 grand. Their buddies are going to drop 20 grand. You're in the millions real fast. That's what Victor Conte did. He made millions and millions and millions of dollars doing this out of his lab at Balco. NFL, NBA, Olympics, everybody. He had over 1,000 professional athletes on his client list. Undetectable steroids, baby. But let's come over to your one. Sure. Hey, music, how about we make it every 72 hours? Let's take every 4 days away. Every 72 hours, you're going to run a urine test. So what test are you going to get? But I know what time it is, right? So if I know it's going to be at 10 a.m. Monday and Thursday, right? So you're gonna do, what test are you doing? Monday and Thursday every week at 10 a.m. Are we doing urine, or are we doing blood also? Because if we're only doing urine, I can shoot my growth hormone an hour before. Oh, we're doing blood. Damn. Okay, we're doing blood and urine every Monday and every Thursday at 10 a.m., right? This is what we're doing. right? Well, I can use a gram of test a week for sure. I can use 10 units of growth hormone a day. I can definitely run insulin. So test no ester. You can run test suspension. Shoot it every 12 hours. We can skip the shot the night before the drug test. And then when I get home from the drug test at 11 a.m., I can go ahead and shoot my dose. That's easy. I can do 100 milligrams a day of test suspension. You do 150 every day. Let's put those 75 every 12 hours. That's a gram of test a week, straight testosterone. That's 10 times what the body produces naturally. I passed your test there. We're good. You won't detect that. Growth hormone, because of the blood, I got to skip the morning shot. So growth hormone, 10 a.m. shot, I probably better not do a shot past about 9 o'clock that night. Yeah. Oh, random times. Well, that gets more complicated. Insulin, you can't detect at all. They should have lie detectors. Oh God, right? So music. Do you see the problem with your situation? So you're giving me, but if you're giving me a testing schedule twice a week, and you're aware how much money that's going to cost you, right? That's running you $1,000 a week to test me, minimal. But notice I didn't name anything exotic. Did I just list anything exotic? Did I list something that you can't get tomorrow? Did I name any drug that you right now in Texas couldn't get off the black market from a regular drug dealer who does gear? Did I name anything exotic? There's dudes at your gym who use those drugs right now. Now, what happens when we go to exotic designers? New stuff that hadn't existed for 40, 50 years already. But you see my point. So I just listed stuff that you can easily get. It just costs a lot. I mean, test suspension is not cheap by comparison, and it's really uncomfortable. It hurts, but there's no metabolites, and it only shows in the blood for about 12 to 14 hours. Yeah, the testers are done by people in that country. Correct, David. So, you know, so let's talk arms race. Let's say there's real money involved, real researchers and labs helping. Not you're not buying from Paco, the muscle head at the gym anymore, right? Now you're buying from Balco Labs. We'll just make a drug there's no test for. If you don't know a drug exists, it's kind of hard to detect it. You got to know what you're looking for. So let's say we go with stuff that shows up for months and months and months that doctors prescribe, right? Normal. So if you're testing for test cypionate and I take test inundate and the only testosterone you're testing for is test cyp, that's the ester you're looking for, that's the metabolite you're looking for on the P test. Do I pass or fail your test? They're almost identical. One chain different on the ester. The half-life is about 5% difference between those two. But you're testing for test cyp and I took test inundate. I pass your drug test. You have to be looking for it. Performance and muscle wise, there's no difference. You can't tell those two apart. They're identical. You know? What do you mean it's stupid? You do realize most gear users are pretty happy with their choice to do it. Just saying. The horror stories are a pretty small minority, all things considered. You'd be surprised. Plenty of guys out there have been pretty happy with their choice to use testosterone and a little DECA for 50 years straight. Perfectly content with their choice. Doing just fine. These people exist. You can talk to them. Start talking to the old guys at the gym. Yeah, just saying. People need to realize that we are not saying the Olympians are blasting. Yeah, they're not. They're not. Nobody blasts like IFBB pros. There's a reason they're dying. I don't think they don't have a context. Yeah, they're using, but it's not comparable. A little bit of test goes a long way. TRT is not, it won't help you compete at all, actually. It's not enough. Like even the lowest dose athlete uses more than TRT. Dude. Lance Armstrong used higher than TRT. And he wasn't even jacked. Yeah. So let's put in context of what some IFBB pros do, so that you have a scale. So music, or so do you understand a comparison? You're smart enough to know that doses matter, right? 20 beers has more alcohol than one beer, right? You get the concept. 20 shots or 50 shots versus one shot is a little bit different. Not quite the same effect on the body. So let's take like a Lance Armstrong stack, like 200 milligrams of test a week for an endurance athlete, 2 to 4 units of growth hormone a day, right? Maybe some EPO, okay? Just the testosterone, right? That's a pretty common endurance athlete type stack. All right. Pro bodybuilders, I'll give examples of guys I've known personally, serious bodybuilders. All right, so you have the 200 testosterone a week, right? And the 3 to 4 units of growth hormone a day. You caught that? All right, I've known guys who use 5,000 milligrams of testosterone a week. Not 200, 5,000. I'm not going that extreme. I've known of much, much higher. Like Dallas McCarver's autopsy, he was on at least 10,000 a week based on the blood work. But let's say baseline for a serious pro bodybuilder, like let's say 5,000 milligrams per week of testosterone. I've known guys who'll stack with that stuff like 200 milligrams of trenbolone every day, not a week, every day. Maybe throw some orals in on top of it at another 100, 150 milligrams every day, like some Anadrol, Anavar, whatever. Maybe throw in another 1,000 milligrams of Primobolan and Masteron every week. Now, that's in place of just the androgen side, right? So take that compared to just 200 milligrams of test. We're up to about 8,000 milligrams of total androgens versus 200, okay? Growth hormone, let's say the Lance Armstrong guy is 2 to 4 units a day. A lot of pro bodybuilders, 10 to 20 units every day. Every day. Growth hormone. Then the insulin. All pro bodybuilders use insulin. Okay? 200 to 300 units of insulin. Konevsky was using, even when he admitted, Eric Konevsky for that first bodybuilding show, he admitted to 312 units of insulin every day. So let's say a lot of these pro bodybuilders, another 300 units of insulin every day on top of it. Then we get into the things like the IGF-1 being thrown in on top of it. A lot of dudes actually like to add thyroid hormones in for their growth hormone to get a more synergistic effect. Not even cutting. We get into cutting, man, all the fat burners come in. But I've known pro bodybuilders who even on their bulk will add T4 thyroid hormone because of the synergistic effect with the high growth hormone. So then the T3 thrown in, sometimes at another 200 micrograms every day. You see where we're going? This is bodybuilding stacks. So this is why Normie say Lance and Juicy goes, they need it. This is the scale. So I've given you examples of what the average guy competing at the Arnold Classic is using. Maybe the guy who placed 11th place at the Mr. Olympia. Like I've given you an example. That's pretty common. That's normal in that world. Now, we didn't jump into clenbuterol, other peptides, things like DNP and crazy stuff. We didn't go there. We didn't even get over there. We went over to what's fairly common. Right? Well, how many steroids do you think the women use? So there's your comparison. Yeah, Kineski was on 7 grams a week for that, plus all the insulin. But his budget wasn't there. Look at he used really, let's just be fair. He was running a Walmart stack, right? Just be honest. Come on, pros. Yeah. So Konefki was admitted to 5 grams of test, 2 units of equipoise, or 2 grams of equipoise. So that was 7 grams total androgens, and he just ran a bunch of insulin with it. I mean, even Doucette clowned him on his stupid ass stack. Yeah, Gucci ambitions on a Walmart budget. He was just a bloated mess up there, really. You know, context, guys. So there's your comparison of a bodybuilder stack versus these Olympians. Like, it's not the same world. Right? So this is why I laugh when people say, Blaha, you're on TRT. Why don't you look like a pro bodybuilder? Well, I don't know. Let's set aside genetics and discuss the fact that I don't use 7 grams of gear, 4 growth hormone kits every week, every month. I mean, good beginner stack, 500 test. Bam, done. Boom. Big shot. Okay, boom. 2 + 2 = 4, big mess. Right? You guys know that guy, right? I'm talking about that one singer with that song, Man's Not Hot, right there. Yeah. Yeah, David. 500 test, good beginner stack. 250 test, that works. My first, when I was in my 20s, when the bros hooked me up, of course I know that, man. The thing goes scraw. Pop, put it pop. All right. So 250 tests, 200 deca per week was my first. That the bros helped me out with back in the day. So we're going to help you out. All right, guys, it's about time to wind this down, though, guys. I got to get ready to do some GPP, and I got to do a consultant and some other stuff. Guy's already paid for his consult. I got to be on time. All right. So, guys, I'm out. Love you guys. I'll try to catch you in an afternoon.